Ozians. I'm the Louisiana Quadling, a Wizard of Oz collector and enthusiast, sharing with you my thoughts, my collection, and a little bit of my musical talent with all of you, and welcome to my channel. Back before I had this YouTube channel, I was sharing my Wizard of Oz collection here locally through public exhibits. And a while back, I was gifted this lovely little photo book that goes through all of my past exhibits of my Wizard of Oz collection. And I thought it would be a kind of fun little trip down memory lane going through the book, and also might be informational for you to be able to find out if you've never done an exhibit of your own collection. Maybe you're interested in doing that. So we'll see what memories get brought back, and we'll get started. Okay, so the very first exhibit that I did. This one was a little bit of a challenge to put together. I had no idea what to expect with this one, so this one was just kind of thrown together. And it was an amazing experience, just seeing the smiles on people's faces of, oh, it's the Wizard of Oz. And and seeing little children go right up to the glass and, pointing at stuff and looking and all that kind of, that was a completely new experience for me. And it's one that really made me want to do this again and again and again, as you'll see. Our local newspaper did a little article on me and my collection and it being exhibited. And that got the attention of the International Wizard of Oz Club, and that is actually how I joined the Oz Club. Was they found me through doing these exhibits, and this was a very exciting time for me. It really was. This was really the beginnings of me slowly getting involved in the Oz community. So that was the first exhibit. The second exhibit happened literally right after the first one. On the day of taking down the first one, we went and moved it directly to the next library. And this one, I did a little bit more strategic work about, setting it up. And I was like, okay, I want it to kind of look like this. And, so I had a little bit more foresight with this one. Anyways, I think there were maybe only 2 or 3 things in this exhibit that were new items that I'd gotten for my birthday in between when the first exhibit went up to this one. The funniest part about that, the reason why I'm saying that, is because a family friend of ours came up to us a week or so after the second exhibit went up, and she said, there's another local collector who collects Wizard of Oz. And I kind of, looked at her and I was like, really? How do you know this? And she said, well, somebody else has their Wizard of Oz collection up at this library. And I played along with this and just went, really? Well, what was in it? What was different from, what I have? And she was like, oh, there was a whole bunch of different stuff from what you had. I mean, like, there were, and I'm just sitting there, listening to her tell me what things are different in my own collection. And it was nothing, she thought it was a completely different collection and that almost everything in it was different from what she had seen at the previous exhibit, simply because it was displayed differently. So I took that to heart with all of the next exhibits. I was like, okay, so if I change this up, and if someone's seen the previous one, then there's going to be something that's going to hit him differently with just placing something differently. So never forgot that. Okay, so this one was the really big doozy of an exhibit. This one was 4 cases, and it was at a university And this one took a while to set up. I can't remember how long it did, but it went up in stages. And this one was very strategically put together, and I drew out the whole thing before it went out. I spent a lot of time planning this one. This one got the attention of a couple different people. There was a local magazine that did a spread on the collection. It also got the attention of the current president of the International Wizard of Oz Club. She was the then vice president when this exhibit went out. And I remember the first time getting contacted by her was really funny. She said, you know, I don't know who you are, but I feel like I should know you. By this point, it was kind of like, expect the unexpected to happen whenever you do one of these things. And I was like, okay, that is interesting. And that was the start of our friendship, and we have been friends ever since that first email that I got. So after I'd done that, I contacted Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and I went to their library system and said, hey, I have a Wizard of Oz collection. I would be happy to exhibit it. Do any of your libraries want this exhibit? And 3 libraries said, yes, absolutely. And we did 2 of them at the same time. Okay, so how was that? Well, it was an adventure, that's for sure. I would never do it again. I would never do it again. It was a major challenge. And the cases that this particular library had were absolutely a challenge. They had some regular cases, but I think they were only maybe 12 inches deep. Maybe less than that, I can't remember. And then after that, they had a whole bunch of tabletop display cases. And that was my first real experience doing any exhibits in those, doing anything in those kinds of cases. So it was a real learning experience for me as far as, okay, how are we going to do this kind of exhibit that's flat and you can look at it from all angles versus just a case that you can look at it from the front. Okay. So this one's really special. This was 2014. This was my first ever International Wizard of Oz Club National Convention that I was attending. And I got contacted and asked, well, we know that you're coming to the convention, and we also know that you're driving to this convention, which was in New York. Is it at all possible that you could do an exhibit for us just at the convention? And I literally sat on this for maybe a day and said, yes! And they only wanted the Tonner dolls. And this was another one where I very strategically had it all planned out. I mean, it took, hilariously, even though these are 2, pretty average size cases that you would have in your own house, it took, I think, 7 hours to put together this exhibit. And I can only imagine somebody being like, what? Yeah, it did. I was also in contact with the Tonner Doll Company, and I told them, hey, I'm doing an exhibit of Wizard of Oz dolls. Is it at all possible that I could get some brochures for the Tonner Doll Company that I could hand out? And they were like, oh, absolutely. And they sent me like a huge packet of brochures for the Tonner Doll Company. I think I have a couple of those left somewhere. Anyways, and it was just so much fun. It was just so much fun. And oh gosh, so many good memories from this. exhibit, and I remember Jane told me, you know, we don't know if you're gonna come to another convention, so you know, we gotta utilize you the best that we can. So that was my first one. So we came back to Louisiana, and I did the final Baton Rouge library. And this one was really interesting. They had all of their cases and like exhibit areas were split up in this library. So they weren't all in just one room. And they had these two hallways where artists could display artwork. And they asked me when they had said, you know, we want you to do the exhibit, do you have any artwork that you could maybe put on in this hallway? And I said, well, absolutely. I've got a whole bunch of movie posters. And this was so cool. I've never been able to do this again. But I got to do this huge hallway and have just a whole bunch of Wizard of Oz posters on it, and it was really neat. Okay, so we had all these kind of happened back to back. Now that I'm seeing the dates, these were back to back, and you know, so this was the third exhibit that year, and unlike the other exhibits that were kind of eclectic with what I put in the cases, there wasn't really much rhyme or reason as far as like, you know, are we going to have a section of MGM here, a section of Return to Oz here, something on L. Frank Baum, you know, that kind of thing. I never did an exhibit like that, and this was the first one that did something like that. And it was a lot of fun and really successful. Okay, so this one. So I returned back to the first library that I did the first ever exhibit in. I did a second one in that library. And this exhibit was such a different animal to what the first one was. I was only allowed with the first exhibit to do the lobby cases, but this library had more cases throughout the library. There were cases on the second floor, and there was a case that you could see the front and the back of that was in the children's department. And I was able to have all the cases this time. So I decided I would section everything off again, like what I had done with the previous exhibit, but with a slight twist. So the foyer cases were just on the Oz books and featured an eclectic mix of different Oz pieces in there as well. And then on the second floor, focused on movies and plays. And then in the children's section were the dolls. Now, something I haven't mentioned when doing these exhibits was that we would have children and people huddle around us whenever we would take something out of a box, or we were taking something out of a bin, and, you know, people would be, like, trying to get all up on you to see, what are you taking out of the box? Oh my gosh, it's so pretty. And, you know, and you're just sitting there going, oh my gosh, like, can you, like, take, like, a good 3 feet back? Thank you. We were putting up the books in the front 2 cases, and I remember the funniest comment that we got. Why would anyone own this many books? And, you know, I'm just kind of standing there, and I'm like, we're in a library, right? I thought people that come here like to read. Anyways, that was a real question that we got. I couldn't believe it. So that happened. So the last case that that put up was the doll case in the children's section. And oh boy, were we just a magnet for everybody. Everybody came right on over to us. When it took the first doll out, it was like, oh! I know doll collectors get flack from people like, oh my gosh, you're a doll collector. But it's so funny how doing these public exhibits, people react to dolls in a way that you just would not know. Unless you've done it before, you just don't know. And this exhibit, just like a lot of, almost all the other ones, people responded like just a people magnet are the dolls. And it was interesting. It was interesting. So we had finished, putting up the exhibit. It was just me and my mom at this point that were doing it. And the rest of the family wanted to see, what does this thing look like, So we go there one night, and, I'm bringing them around. I'm like, okay, this case is, it's like, oh, it looks really cool. We get back to the front desk, and there is a lady standing at the desk, and the receptionist says, oh, this lady wants to talk to you about the exhibit. And I was like, oh, okay, no problem. And she tells me, yeah, there's not enough in the cases. And I just kind of looked at her like, there's not enough in the cases. I mean, I had only filled 9 cases with my own collection. And she proceeds to tell me that, and the fact that there are no Barbie dolls in here, like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, I don't exactly remember what she said, how she worded that one, but, there was like this almost, accusational sort of, and no Barbie. And I'm like, okay, yes, that was a decision that I made. What's wrong with it? I'm not getting it. Anyways, she had brought her own daughter's Barbies to put in the exhibit because she was determined that a Barbie had to be in this exhibit. So, people are very opinionated about Barbie, obviously. So, that was a thing. And I, of course told her no, that that was very nice. It was very nice of you to suggest that, but, I don't think the exhibit needs anything else in it. And said goodbye. It was, that experience, I don't know, you really never know with these things. Like what I said, you're dealing with the general public, you really don't know who's going to come out of the woodwork and, start telling you what you should and shouldn't do. Just interesting. Just interesting. Okay, so this exhibit was the first of 2 character-centered exhibits, and this one was on Dorothy. And I loved this one. It was almost all Dorothy dolls. Gotta love it. And did this really cool little history of actresses who played Dorothy over the years, starting with Anna Loughlin, who played Dorothy in the original 1903 Broadway Wizard of Oz. It started with her and went all the way to The Wiz Live, which was the most recent Wizard of Oz, anything with Dorothy in it at that time. So that was a lot of fun to do. The next year I did one on the Tin Man, But this particular exhibit was a collaborative exhibit. This was the first one that I'd ever done where I contacted a couple other local collectors. There were 4 of us all together, and we took different sections of this huge case, and we all did different themed stuff, and it was a really cool exhibit. Okay, so we get to the final exhibit, and this one was in over 30 cases that almost wrapped around an entire room. And to be perfectly honest, it was a nightmare to put together. I had no idea what the strategy was going to be to put this thing up. I had vague ideas on how to do it, but at the end of the day, it was trial and error. And when you're in a room and there's over 30 cases, the trial and error is going to take you a long time. And there were just a lot of factors with this that were just like nightmare fuel. In my opinion, just nightmare fuel. But I got it up. It took me 3 months to put up. Now, part of that happened because I was trying to get into this area whenever I could. So right whenever I'd get off from work, I'd go in. Right before I'd go to work, I'd go in. When I had a day off, I would just spend the entire work day at the library configuring this exhibit. And I overworked myself. I totally did. Ended up getting sick. It pushed me back another 2 weeks. And that's why it took so long. So, don't do that. Just don't. Just don't. Like, actually plan something out better than what I did for this one, but I think it was just too overwhelming for me. Anyways, this particular one was another special exhibit because this one was up for the national convention that was actually held here in Louisiana. And I helped put that convention together. And that was a whole interesting experience all by itself. We will not get into that here. But it was a lot of fun, yet again, to do another exhibit for an International Wizard of Oz Club convention. And to, be able to bring people around the cases and, give them a tour. And doing the exhibits, I'll say this. They were a lot of fun to do. I would absolutely say, if you get an opportunity to do anything with your collection in the public, go for it. It's a lot of fun to do. If you know it's going to be in a secure place under lock and key, definitely not just sitting out, yeah, go for it. I wouldn't trust anything just sitting out anywhere. No. I've actually told libraries no when they told me that was the circumstances. I was like, no. No. This was definitely a fun time, but I can absolutely tell you that sharing my collection with all of you in video form is definitely a lot of fun for me right now, and I really don't have any intention on doing another public exhibit because I'm now doing a public exhibit with all of you. And it's really been a fun journey for me so far, and we're still on this road. This road isn't done yet with YouTube, and I don't know. I feel like the exhibits are kind of behind me at this point, but anything's possible. Absolutely. And I really hoped you enjoyed a little bit of memory lane for me. Drop a comment down below if you have ever exhibited your collection, or gotten funny feedback from people about your collection who have seen it? I would love to hear what your experiences are. And if you liked that video, please give it a thumbs up, comment down below, and subscribe. New videos are posted on the 15th and last day of each month. And if that doesn't satisfy your appetite for Oz, follow the link in the description to ozclub.org and join the International Wizard of Oz Club. Until next time, bye y'all.